Mexico is a huge country, if you think about it. It is the third largest country on the entire planet. And we see the map of North America. Mexico belongs to North America. Sometimes you have to emphasize it, although it is elementary and is learned at school. Primary. We see the physical volume of Mexico, which is also a volume decreased from of the war that in the middle of the century 19 made the United States stay, with an important part of that territory in the era of conquest. Spanish. What later became Mexico were much bigger. Southern states of the United States, including complete Texas, a big part of what it is, California, etc., belong to Mexico country. There was a war. States. United States annexed after the war. Mexican territories. Welcome to Mexican. We have top-notch material to humiliate those who give us bad vibes. A journalist. Important Argentinian, Carlos Palomini. He released truths that hurt abroad. But here they inflate our chests. Take note, envious people. While many abroad spend their time criticizing a great Argentine journalist, Carlos Palomini, he came out to say what everyone knows, but few dare to confess. Mexico is the pyramidal axis of all of Latin America. In an analysis that is already viral, Palomini made it clear that Mexico is not just a neighbor of the United States, but the 10th economic power in the world with a drive that others would already like. He, journalist, did not hold anything back and called Donald Trump the bully of the North. Said that invasion threats against our President Claudia Sheinbaum, they are just the tantrum of a madman who he cannot bear to see a strong and sovereign Mexico. What hurt the most critics is that an Argentine recognizes that in the balance of forces of North America, Mexico is the key piece that maintains order. We are no longer the backyard. We are the owners of the. It fits, and even the Argentines admit it. At LO MEXICANO we celebrate this bath of reality. While other countries, they bow before Washington, Mexico stands firm as the goat that dominates the continent. The journalist Palomini spilled the beans on why Trump is so hot on us. It's not the drug trafficker, it's not the border, it's envy. It turns out that the industry, Mexican automotive, is so powerful that is already surpassing that of the United States. Joined, it's a worldwide open secret. Mexico manufactures better cars and better price, and that has businessmen Detroit shaking with fear. That's why Trump goes out to invent that Mexico is poorly managed because it cannot accept that a woman like Claudia Sheinbaum is taking the country to levels of world power that they already lost. Palomini warns that what the empire really wants are our resources, lithium, water, and our industrial capacity. But they hit a wall because Mexico has 180 million warriors, 140 here and 40 there, that they are not going to allow what is ours to be stolen from us. We are 180 million reasons, so that Trump thinks twice before barking. The giant woke up and comes for the entire market. Let's listen. Today we are going to dedicate ourselves to beginning of the program for a little while to a country that was defined long ago by a writer, Nemesio Garcia. Orange, this happened in the early 60s with this idea. Poor Mexico, so far from God and so close to states joined. The phrase is usually attributed to the president, Porfirio Diaz, and the truth is that Mexico currently occupies a place completely central to the world's agenda, not to mention on the agenda. America, and his mental drift in public. President Donald Trump this week, after the attack on Caracas and the kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro, among other things, he said that it will be the turn to annex Greenland to U.S. territory. Take care of yourself. Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia, which replied, I abandoned the armed struggle a long time ago. If you want to come and measure forces, let's do it. I have no problem taking back the weapons. He said that the time of the Cuban Revolution is exhausted. What? The Cuban Revolution is about to fall, or the political process in which the Cuban Revolution is about to conclude, and said that Mexico is a country clumsy and poorly managed by President Claudia Sheinbaum, because in reality is drug trafficking. It is the cartels that rule the nation with, which limits the United States to the south. The lack of limits in public. President of the main power. World weapons as a whole. Affair. The drift of the president who says things as if they were truths that later own American justice begins to deny. For humanity at a time like Shakespeare, no. ESA idea de Macbeths. A great work by the Elizabethan playwright. That among other things POTUS the one that. Sometimes what happens is the story of a madman. Of a madman and that everyone. We metabolize that situation and get used to the fact that dementia, the madness, futility are in power both in United States as in other places in the world, including Argentina there. Mexico is a huge country, if you think about it. It is the 13th largest country on the entire planet. And we see the map of North America. Mexico belongs to North America. Sometimes you have to emphasize it. Although it is elementary and is learned at school. Primary. We see the physical volume of Mexico, which is also a volume decreased from of the war that in the mid-19th century made the United States stay with an important part of that territory in the era of the Spanish conquest. What later was in Mexico. They were much larger states in the south of United States, including entire Texas. A big part of what it is, California, etc., belonged to Mexico country. There was a war of states. The United States annexed Mexican territories after the war. The reality. Population of Mexico is that they live in Mexico today. In January 2026, almost 140 million people. 139 million people exactly. And they say the statistics that another 40 million Mexicans live in the United States. Many of them are Mexicans who crossed the border recently. 4 million people. And who live without papers in United States, that is, without legality, without any visa, and the rest are children of first-generation Mexicans or Mexicans who crossed a long time ago and are already American citizens. That is to say, 10% of the total population of the United States. 400 million. 40 million are Mexicans. That is to say that Mexico is 140,000 in territory and 40 on the U.S. side. 180 million people. Mexico's economy is 10th economy in the world in this moment. He has brutal drive, and with the President Claudia Sheinbaum, to whom so the President referred contemptuously. Donald Trump, what he has experienced. Mexico is a variation of the figures. Permanent levels of poverty that are very high. Of those 140 million people who live in Mexico, almost 40 million people according to statistics belong to the poor, those who do not change their situation, regardless of the economic situation of the rest. But if we look in the other 100 million Mexicans, many of them belong to upper classes, very wealthy middle classes. Many of them, it is a huge amount. They drive the country's economy. And if we look at the place that Mexico occupies in the map of many issues of America, Latina, including that it was the country that received exiles in droves during the eras of dictatorships. Many Argentines, the Argenmex, we realize the pyramidal importance that Mexico has in the temperament of Latin America. It is a country in Latin America, and also in the balance of forces in North America, whose goat, the United States, presumes that it is the owner of the entire continent's yard. Mexico. It must be explained to understand the dimension of what is happening in the world today. When the bully of the North threatens Mexico with a hypothetical invasion, is threatening the complete world with invade all. Countries whose presidents do not like or whose politics you don't like. When in reality what is being debated below is the assets that those countries have. If Argentina were governed by Quilerismo, to give you an example, good. The United States was concerned about following the case of Cristina Fernández de Kaiser and put in jail and could not run for elections. Good. Is United behind this other operation that is not read as such in Argentina? They would come for the government, accusing his responsible because they want lithium and they want water, among many other things they want. In the case of Mexico, the Mexican automotive industry is so powerful that is surpassing the S to the of the United States, and it is a secret. Voices all over the world and many times. Some Mexican celebrities who live in the United States like Salma Hayek to the time to go to a television show and, when asked in television because of the super stereotypical stereotypes regarding Mexico, what is a country with many stereotypes, ride in Calora and start explaining in public. But you know what? They talk when they talk about Mexico. The idea of poor Mexico, so far from God, so close to America, turned into a song. It must be said that the former left-wing president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, AMLO in 2023, turned the phrase around and said in public, "We will listen to it later. Blessed Mexico, so close to God and not so far from the United States." The victim's story is over. Palamini remembered the old phrase of, "Poor Mexico, so far from God and so close to the United States." But he gave the return to AMLO's historical phrase, "Blessed Mexico, so close to God and not so far from the United States." And it is that. Being close to the north is no longer a curse. It is our greatest advantage. Strategic to dominate them commercially. We are the country that received all the exiles when others suffered dictatorships, and now we are the beacon of hope for the entire region. While Argentina and other countries, they turn right and become cowardly before Washington's orders. Mexico together. Brazil and Colombia are the only ones that put a stop to gringo abuse. The Argentine press highlights that Mexico, it has a cultural identity and a sovereign weight that no one can break. Somos 140 million driving the economy and ready to defend the flag. So, you already know, carnal ones, let the threats continue. Because every bark of Trump, it is a sign that Mexico is on the right path. Subscribe if you are proud of this Mexico power and give it like if you want to see the gringos asking for forgiveness. Ah.